Hello everyone. Welcome to the 140 Q&A practice. We're going to start with defense questioning. Ready? You have talked about people being in the street around the bank and north of the bank and around the bonfire. Were there any people wandering around south of the bank? As far as I know, there were just people walking around the bank all night long. You have testified that you didn't know any of the people who were throwing rocks. That's true. Aside from that, roughly how many people did you encounter that evening that you knew? Oh, approximately 15, I think. I am not sure. And you talked to them? Yes, I did. And they were sort of wandering around as you were? Yes, they were. Among the 15 or so that you say you knew, did any of them throw any rocks? I didn't see them throwing any rocks. Was there much foot traffic to the south of the bank? Were there people milling around on the street? At various periods, yes. Sometimes the street was clear, would you say? Sometimes, yes. You were standing across from the bank, is that correct? That's correct. At one time, there was a considerable group of people between you and the bank? Yes. At that time, did you hear any breaking glass? I heard breaking glass for quite a long period of time. Was the crowd tightly packed or dispersed? At times it was tight, and at times it was loose. Well, could you have seen through the crowd in order to see who was pitching the rocks at the time you heard glass breaking? If they were in the street, yes. If they had been not in the street but were on the curb, could you have seen them? I think so. I am tall. I can generally see over most people. Although you heard glass breaking, you didn't see anyone pitching a stone? I would see arms go up and rocks let loose. You would see that? Yes, I would. Were you able to see who these people were? I tried not to. Why not? That's a very hard question to answer. I didn't want to assist the police in putting anyone in jail. It's that simple. I have been in jail myself, and I just can't see it. You are saying that at a certain time, you did hear glass breaking, and you say that you saw arms raised throwing stones at the glass, but you avoided seeing who was doing this? At times I did see the people who were throwing them, but I didn't know them. I had never seen them before. I just moved in this community. If it were someone you did know, could you have seen him at all times? If I had been keeping an eye on him, well, not if you had been keeping an eye on him. Just simply in the course of standing there, would you have been able to identify everyone who threw an object at the time that the glass was breaking? Objection compound. Sustained. Restate the question. Would you restate your question, please? Well, there were times when glass was being broken that you didn't see someone throwing an object? Yes, quite a few times. Quite a few times? I would hear the sound of glass breaking, and I would turn around, and there would be a broken window. Of course, I hadn't seen who had thrown the stone. You say you would have no hesitancy about identifying David Albright in this proceeding because it is an informal proceeding. Is that correct? Yes. You know this proceeding could result in the termination of Dr. Albright? Yes, I know. All right, so I'm going to switch transcripts. And this is going to start with the court. Here we go. All right, Mr. Bryan, you have a witness. Thank you, Your Honor. People call Officer Newmeyer, Santa Ana Police Department. Take the stand, please. State your full name and spell your last. Gary E. Newmeyer, N-E-W-M-Y-E-R. Mr. Newmeyer, what is your occupation? Police officer for the city of Santa Ana. How long have you been so employed? Little over 4 years. Directing your attention to the 5th of April of 2011, were you employed as a police officer with the city of Santa Ana on that date? Yes, sir, I was. Directing your attention to the early a.m. hours of April the 5th, 2011, did you respond to a dispatch call to the residence of Ann Rodriguez? Yes, sir. About what time did you arrive at her residence? About 3:30 a.m., 3:20 to 3:30. Did you have a conversation with Mrs. Rodriguez? Yes, sir, I did. Were you informed that she had been the victim of a rape? Yes, sir, I was. Did she provide any information to you at that time about the automobile the rapist was in? Yes, sir. Did you, with the information provided to you, make a determination as to who the automobile was registered to? Yes, sir. And who was the registered owner of the automobile matching the registration or the license number that she provided to you? The defendant, William Kenneth Good. Based on that information, did you obtain a photograph of the defendant? Yes, sir. Did you prepare a photographic lineup to show to Mrs. Rodriguez? Yes, sir. How many photographs all told did you use? Including the defendant, 17. How many? 17. You have those with you? Yes, sir, I do. People moved to mark collectively as Exhibit 3 for identification for the people a series of 17 colored photographs showing a frontal and a profile of 17 male Caucasians. What is the next number? 3? It will be marked as one exhibit for identification. Is that correct? Yes. Exhibit 3. Okay. After you showed the 17 photographs, which have been marked as Exhibit 3, did Mrs. Rodriguez select one of the photographs as the person who had raped her? Yes, sir. Which photograph did she select? Well, they were in order. I have to look at the number. Would you identify which of the photographs out of the 17 that she selected? This one. Okay, so I'm going to switch transcripts again. A little bit of medical. Okay, here we go. Doctor, did you ever hear the phrase that the devil made me do it? Yes. It's a phrase that is aimed at avoidance of responsibility, isn't it? Yes. Doctor, in the field of psychiatry, natural emphasis, is to look at human behavior. Is that true? Yes. In looking at human behavior, there is a natural emphasis to try to understand human behavior. That's correct. Sometimes, doctor, don't we find that in the business of understanding human behavior, we sometimes slip into an area of excusing human behavior? That's a philosophical question, but I would assume it could happen, yes. Well, at least as to this actual hard, pragmatic question, whether the defendant was totally unable to understand the nature and quality of his acts. I'm going to object to that question as being a misstatement of the test. Your Honor, there is no diminishment of this test. I'll permit you to finish the question, then let's see what it embodies. Doctor, do you understand the test to be that the defendant has to be absolutely unable to understand the nature and quality of his act? Yes. Your Honor, again, we will interpose the same objection and move to strike as not the test. The question that was asked is not asking what the test is. The question was asking the doctor if that's his understanding of what the test is. Now, doctor, from what you have told us, you are not able yourself to say to this jury that this defendant, that you know that this defendant was unable to know the quality and nature of his act, or that it was wrong. I believe my opinion was to the extent that his ability to comprehend the quality of his actions was seriously impaired to a point where he was probably unable to comprehend them at the time, and it was an irrational act, totally inconsistent with his usual behavior, and a problem of the acute intoxication. When you say probable or unable, yes, I assume you use that word guardedly, probably unable, because you are not in a position, other than to judge what the defendant told you, to really determine what the process of his mind was that night. That's correct. And this previous aggressive behavior on his part, this is something that you picked up during your interview with him. Is that correct? Yes. I have nothing further. Redirect, counsel. All right, so we'll stop there. And that concludes our Q&A practice for the 140 class.